That's so
now we're live. Now we're really live, Levi. We're really live now. Not
everybody. I'm Phillip Slavin here for the 10-12 podcast, covering all 12 teams in the Big 16.
Not running a 30-second countdown that nobody saw, and then us talking with the
A+ production only found here.
Hey, everybody, guess what? Welcome to the 10-12. We are, of course, the podcast that covers all 16 teams in the Big 12 Conference. And with the Big 12 releasing their 2025 football schedule today, finally, to the joy of everyone, we got to break it down because we're a Big 12 show. So we have to break down the schedule. Joining me to do so is a man that I still can't believe I texted about this while they're working on running Ethernet cable in my office. He is Levi Stevenson of Wide Right Natty Lite. Levi, welcome, bud.
Thank you for having me.
I
was like, you know what, Phil might botch the beginning of this show. I don't know if I want to be here for this or not, but
no, it's always fun when Phillip screws something up.
You'll have something up.
I got a lot of notes. I want to ask, did you watch the live schedule reveal that was broadcast on ESPN Plus, ESPNU, FS2, True TV, and there's one more. Oh, Max, HBO Max. No, not HBO Max, just Max. Because why would you include HBO in the name of it, which is the brand? We'll just call it Max.
So they gave it like the March Madness treatment where they just put it on every channel and just see what happens.
Yeah.
I unfortunately was not able to. I got caught up in some work stuff this morning, but I was eagerly anticipating it, and it sounds like it was a pretty neat little deal.
Yeah, it was solid. They did a solid job. Pete Sousa, who's on the Big 12 Live show, they do once a week, was on there. They broke down team by team, schedule by schedule, and I thought they did it. I thought they did a good job. Like, was it the most just like hype thing you've ever watched? No,
I mean,
schedule release.
Schedule, yeah.
But I did think they did a solid job with it. I'm glad that they did something in relation to that. We've been talking about the need for something like that. Like we talked about on Monday's podcast, which dropped, and then of course the Big 12 announced they were going to do all that. And so then to basically simulcast it across 5 different platforms, 3 streaming, 2 live on TV, I think was really smart and really wise to utilize all their different media partners, both Fox and CBS. Obviously, they strengthened that relationship there, and ESPN to get it across all those different places. I mean, for an hour, I think that was a brilliant move on the Big 12's part.
Yeah, no, I mean, everybody's been talking about since Yormark took over and all that Big 12 needs to do things to set itself apart. Now, there's a fine line to walk there because you don't want to like do some totally like off the wall stuff that makes you look like a completely unserious football league. But doing stuff like this to create some buzz around football season year round and try to establish yourself, because it's pretty well established that the Big 12, even if it's not necessarily the best basketball conference this year, or it maybe is arguably, but the SEC is really good. But like the Big 12 has the best brand as a basketball conference right now, even if it, because most years it is one of the best, best or second best or whatever, but they still want to establish themselves as the third best football brand conference, and doing stuff like this is a good way to do that, just to create some excitement year round to keep people paying attention to it.
Yeah, no, I completely agreed. I've been working on this rant that I'm going to have about Yormark and what's been promised and that's what's been delivered and what's been teased. At a certain point, I start to feel like the Big 12 is becoming those video game companies that release elaborate commercials, ads, teasers to fans at like video cons for games that then never actually get released.
Like Elder Scrolls 6 being teased in 2018 was when the first trailer came out, and right now it's still multiple years off.
Big 12 Mexico is Elder Scrolls 6. So
which will come out first? The Big 12 is Yormark getting all of Yormark's thing, or GTA 6. No.
We'll see. By the way, if you are watching, hop in the comments, hop in the live chat. We can see all your comments. We'll read them off. We'll answer some questions. If you've got thoughts, concerns, anything you want to raise. I got quite a few notes that we're going to get to as we talk about this. I'll throw it up here as best as I can because, of course, look, if I do have one complaint about this whole thing, it's the fact that the print is so
I straight up, I can't read that right on my screen.
I have it up on my secondary screen, and I'm still sitting here like,
this feels like one of those eye tests where I go and the eye doctor makes me feel bad because my eyes suck.
even I'm like, well, we want it all to be uniform. Okay, fine, I get that. This says UCF. Do you see how much wasted space there is here where we could have actually made it like legible? Like it's just 3 letters, and I can't read it. I can't read it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because they tried to keep it that they took the graphic design approach where they kept everything nice and uniform, which I get it, but like it looks more, professional. But also this chart just screams modern minimalism, which can go all the way to hell. I mean, even the biggest name, which is probably what Oklahoma State's probably the biggest, like girthiest name in this.
From a name in conference, yes.
Yeah, so it's the one that you have to account the most as far as space in the box. And you could, like, even Oklahoma State, you can make that bigger and be like, okay, like you can take it to the edge of the box.
Drop the @ Why do you need the @ when you've already created a code here of like green is home or gray is home, away is white? Like just wait an @ So like I don't need it. I'm smart enough to understand. Okay, you have given me. Look, some people are people are dumb. Individuals are fairly smart. You'd think they'd be able to figure it out, but it is what it is. And the minimalist thing, I mean, the new Big 12 logo is black and white. Like everything primary for the Big 12 is black and white because there's so many different colors. And this is great. This is a great design if you have 10 teams. There's 16 teams. So again, 16 teams makes everything worse, but it is what it is, and we'll roll with it. Levi, we'll make this easy and start with Iowa State, as that's the team you cover. Obviously, week 0 versus Kansas State in Ireland. It is Farmageddon, though I've been warned maybe not talking about Farmageddon, very different connotation over there in Ireland than it would have in relation to corn versus wheat.
Unfortunately,
in the US.
That very particular country has had Farmageddon, in the past. So, maybe we don't call it that over there. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. Just go drink with them. You'll be fine. Obviously, Farmageddon week 0.
That will be taken care of.
Iowa State and Kansas, because they'll have week 0 games. 3 idle weeks. There's no such thing as a bye week. It's not a bye week. You're not automatically taking a pass to the next round of something. You're just idle. You're just staying home. 3 idle weeks on this season.
I'm trying to change the entire lexicon of college football.
I will do whatever I want. This is my show.
One podcast at a time. Yeah.
I have been a fan, and I'm always curious on coaches' perspective. Some like multiple weeks off, some don't because they want to have the continuity of playing all the way through. I feel like 2 idle weeks in a season is a good thing, especially if you have to play. If your first one comes like early and you got to go on a 10-game stretch, TCU like every year. But 3 seems excessive to me.
3's too many. 3's too many.
Because I just like it does sit in a point where like 4 games week off, 3 games week off, 3 games week off, 2 games.
Now, if you talk to Matt Campbell, he's going to divide that into 4 games, into 3-game seasons, and treat it that way, and that's how it'll get talked about. I don't know. It's 1 bye seems right. 2 is kind of, I don't know. 3 is too many. Talking talk to players and stuff like that. They don't like any bye weeks. Bye weeks are not like a welcome thing for players, especially early. Like the early bye weeks, like the week 3, week 4 bye weeks suck. They don't. They're horrible. Because you're just starting to get some momentum. You're just starting to get into a rhythm, and then it's boop bye week. For Iowa State, they kind of got lucky because they started off with they have 4 games before a bye. Right. That's time to get in a little bit of a roll and there. So the bye week, the first bye week is in an okay spot for Iowa State. Actually, Iowa State's byes in general are fine. TCU's bye is brutal.
That's what they have every year. No. I am convinced one of the reasons that TCU is ending the series with SMU, other than just all the pettiness, is because SMU always has that game always ends up falling on week 4. They end up having their idle week like week 2 or 3 every year, which is the worst time to take a week off. Like congrats on 1 game and now take a week off.
So they've only got 2 idle weeks, and
which is what most people have.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, I guess Iowa State's got 3. Because I thought most of them
Well,
had
because
3.
Iowa State, Kansas, and Kansas State play in week 0, they all have 3 weeks off.
Oh, sure. Okay, that makes sense. Because
Yes.
instead of having week 0 off, you just get it someplace else. Sure. Okay,
Correct.
that makes sense.
And everybody else has 2. So it's a 2 idle week season for everybody else.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, God, TCU got hosed. That's bad.
But this is every year. This is every year for TCU.
Even BYU,
every year.
BYU, UCF, and Oklahoma State only have 2 and then a bye week.
Yeah, I also
Oklahoma State at the beginning of the season is horrible. You gotta go play at Oregon.
And they moved, and we'll this is, everyone understand, this is already inaccurate. This is already wrong, because Oklahoma State's season opener is now on Thursday. Houston's season opener is on Thursday. I promise you, weeknight games are not set yet throughout the season, and they haven't even earmarked like one or the other. Like there's a couple. West Virginia at BYU on October 4th is a weeknight game. You've got a couple of, could be Friday, Saturday over Thanksgiving break, but for the most part, there's not much midweek right now. That will change between now and June. So this schedule is not even like truly set in stone. It's more just like, here's the teams you play on this week. Probably going to be on Saturday. Expect a few move to Thursday or Friday as Fox and ESPN kind of figure some of those things out.
I wouldn't be shocked if that Iowa State Oklahoma State game Thanksgiving weekend gets moved to Black Friday.
It might. I would be. First of all, I understand that West Virginia plays at BYU on a Friday on October 4th and then is off a week before they go to UCF. Scott Frost versus Rich Rod, the 2 most infamous rehires of this cycle, playing on a night like a Thursday or Friday when they get their own window, I think to me is a move that should be made, because there's such a unique storyline there that having those 2 teams face off, like to me, from storyline and from a marketing standpoint, I want that game on a Thursday or Friday night. Like I want that game moved up.
Sure.
What UCF won't love that, because they have to play the week before at Cincinnati and then they come home. But like, and I think the Big 12 typically likes to try and make sure that if they make a weeknight game, they try and have a week off beforehand. But they didn't do that with BYU West Virginia. So shrug.
They'll put them on a short week if they have to.
Yeah. So like that one to me, I would see moving. Looking overall, and as I was writing notes, only 2 teams have to do road back-to-backs twice. And both of them have an off week in between the second one. Kansas has at UCF, at Texas Tech, and then at Arizona, at Iowa State. There is a week off between the second one here. Still, that is however you want to look at it, 4-week stretch in which you play at home one time. So that one's a little bit tricky. The other one, of course, is BYU because of non-conference idle week, and then it's at East Carolina, at Colorado, and then at Iowa State week off, at Texas Tech. So again, a week off in between there. East Carolina, you view them how you want to view them. It's not the most difficult 2-game back-to-back road stretch.
Right.
This one, it is interesting to me in both these situations. At Arizona and Iowa State is tricky.
Yeah. Having the bye week is kind of weird. I guess it kind of depends on how good you think Arizona is going to be. Because they're at K-State.
Kansas is showdown. Assume Oklahoma State bounces back to some extent. Then you got to go to Arizona week off, at Iowa State, Utah this season. First off, let's just remind everybody this. We can sit here and have conversations right now about how complicated someone's schedule is based off of our expectations of how good or bad a team is going to be in 2025.
Right.
That doesn't mean squat. If you have been a fan of the Big 12 and you have not learned this lesson yet, let me make this very, very clear for you. Your pre-season expectations are wrong.
Yeah, you can look at Iowa State last year too. We thought that was going to be just an absolute,
horror season.
Yeah. Horror show coming down the stretch when you got like Kansas State at Utah, all this, and it was going to be horrible. And then turns out Utah's bad, and it turns out Cincinnati's not that great, and like they're okay, but they're not great. And the finish to the season actually turns out to be pretty okay. And Iowa State generally took advantage of that, or whatever. So it's just one of those where, everybody thought Arizona State was going to be bad last year. So, it was kind of one of those where Arizona State came out of nowhere, and then Utah also came out of nowhere, but the other direction. So, it's still an okay exercise to look at this in the preseason and say, okay, based on where we think these teams should be, this is what it looks like, and then just adjust as the season goes on.
Yeah, I just want everyone to remember,
I mean,
remember,
in the end, it's the preseason.
The preseason poll last year was flip flopped by the end of the year. This is it just is what it is, and that's okay. That's okay. We have to have these conversations but we have to be willing to admit it's okay. This is the Big 12. If you're going to hold me to it come October, cool.
It's football in general. I mean, there's
also the Big 12.
There's so much variance. It doesn't. I mean,
yes, in every conference, but the Big 12 more than anywhere else.
Yeah, Big 12 has more variance than most, just because the teams are the gap between the best teams and the worst teams is just not that big. Like the gap between last year, the gap between Arizona State and Iowa State, and I guess Oklahoma State had pretty tough stretch there at the end, but then
at the end, just a tough stretch you mean a tough stretch from week 4 on.
Phil, I'm trying to be nice here.
You don't have to be. We OSU fans all went through it.
Like the gap between Arizona State and Iowa State and TCU and Cincinnati was just not very big.
No,
or Houston and Cincinnati was just not. It's just not a big gap. So you're gonna have that variance on a year-to-year basis, and a lot of it. I mean, a lot of it is just what bounces you get right. Some of it's matchup dependent. Iowa State was overall probably the better team than Kansas last year, but Kansas beat Iowa State's ass because schematically it's a terrible matchup for Iowa State.
Well, Kansas was the hottest team in the country the last half of the season.
Nobody wanted any piece of Kansas the last half of the season. No. Arizona State didn't want them. We didn't want them. Nobody wanted Kansas at the end of the year. And
so you just don't know.
Yeah, just have no idea. So, but it's still interesting to look at this and look at the paths that teams. If you look at, if you're going to pick 4, maybe 5 teams to be these are the teams that can really compete at the top, that we think are going to be really competitors at the top end of the conference. You're looking at probably Arizona State, right? Probably looking at Baylor.
Yes.
BYU.
Should be. Yes.
I think Iowa State deserves to be up there.
Mm-hmm.
Probably Kansas State.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say those 5 feel good as we if they perform up to expectations, they should be right there in the hunt the last few weeks.
I am.
There's a couple other teams that probably
there's 2 more teams that I think are. There's 2 more teams that I think we throw into this mix that are kind of under the radar. Texas Tech, and I understand why.
Sure, yeah.
But what they've done in the portal this offseason, I think, has continued to improve that roster, and I love the coordinator hires that they made. And TCU.
Texas Tech and TCU were the 2 I was going to throw out as kind of bubble teams.
Because I think there's a case. I think you could. I almost think at this point, based off, I think Kansas State almost belongs more with the TCU Texas Tech squad than they do everyone else. But I still also I'm not going to sit here.
I would actually probably completely agree with you, but I was trying to correct for my inherent bias. So, as my inherent rival bias, but I
don't want to I'm also not going to pick Kansas State to finish with fewer than 8 wins. That's just not.
They've got Ireland. They've got North Dakota, which honestly, watch out for North Dakota.
Let's go to Army at Arizona.
So North Dakota, that's not a nice stretch to the beginning of the season.
No.
As FCS teams go, North Dakota is probably just one half of a step down from the North Dakota States of the world. Where North Dakota State, you're on full on upset. You see North Dakota State on your schedule, you are immediately panicking.
It's not North Dakota State; it's North Dakota.
But right, no, that's what I'm saying though. North Dakota is not a far step down from North Dakota State. If you look at how good they were last year, they had a whole bunch of freshmen because Iowa State played them in Ames and they won 24-0. But if you watched that game, North Dakota was super young. They had a true freshman quarterback, and that offense could move the ball. They were it was kind of scary to watch a little bit. I'm surprised we held them to 0. And actually, they were one of the best offenses in the FCS last year. That North Dakota game is not one to be taken lightly. Army's horrible. I don't want to play Army.
No. Goodness, no.
I don't want any part of Army. Arizona, I'm under the belief that they probably will not take a big step up from last year, losing their best receiver. And they got Fafita back, but I guess I haven't paid a lot of attention to what their transfer portal season looked like, if they got anything major or not. But just knowing that they lost, one of the best receivers in college football last year, that's a bit of a point of concern for me. So after that,
so it's 4 games a week off.
UCF,
UCF
which
at Baylor,
who even knows what
TCU.
UCF's going to be?
Yeah.
At Baylor, at Baylor is that's a tough one.
At Baylor, TCU back to back is
not great.
TCU. No.
Let's see what TCU looks like, but that could be a tough little stretch there.
Then they're off.
Kansas is a trap. Because Kansas will be in the new stadium, right?
They should be, yeah.
Yeah, they'll be in the new stadium. So if Kansas is good and they have a decent crowd, which
they will,
we'll see. Well, you hope, but they had Leipold bitching about it all last season too. But
that was an NFL stadium.
I mean, I guess, but it's at Arrowhead. It's not just an NFL stadium; it's at Arrowhead. Also, but anyways,
sucked to start the season.
Yes, and anyways, so you've got Texas Tech at home. That's going to be a tough one. At Oklahoma State, I'm not as up on Oklahoma State as you are, obviously. I mean, I would expect Oklahoma State to be at least a little better.
They should be improved. So you go Oklahoma State, and then you go to Utah.
Is Oklahoma State a bowl team, in your opinion?
Yes.
Okay, so if they're a bowl team, then that is a dangerous enough team to be worried about.
And let's see, does Oklahoma State will also be coming off of
Utah, which I have no idea what to think about Utah. They lost a lot. They have the quarterback situation is super murky.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, Utah might be I think they're probably a 6-ish win team next year, but I couldn't tell you, to be honest.
Kyle Whittingham's final season in Utah. Yeah, well, it'll be
probably. Then you're Colorado at home, and who knows what Colorado's going to be, because they just lost the two of the maybe 5 best players in college football.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I mean, they got some really good transfers, and they got that 5-star quarterback. Maybe Deion is as good a coach as some people think he is, and he just produces a winner every year because he can get so much talent. Maybe I'm to the point now. So this doesn't need to go into a whole Deion thing, but like my thoughts on Deion now are that he probably is a pretty decent coach. And, from what we can see from like some of the clips that we've seen from there, he's a guy that his players will go to war for, because, Deion, Deion is strikes me as the kind of guy that if he has time for you, he will make time for you. If he doesn't have time for you, he doesn't have time for you. But he has time for it. He makes time for his players. He treats them like their own kids. And it, even if he's whatever as a person, you can think whatever you want about Deion, but it seems to me that he's at least validated himself as a coach worth respecting at the Power 5 level. I think at the minimum, he's deserved that. Now we're going to really see what his coaching chops looks like this year, when he doesn't have his all-world kid playing quarterback, and he doesn't have, one of the best college football players of the last 2 decades playing, receiver and corner.
Yeah.
So we're going to see what this looks like. Oh, and actually is it JC Horn? Is it JC?
I believe so.
JC Horn. He's also gone. So they lost all 3 of their best players.
If they make it, as low a bar as it may sound, if they make it to a bowl game this year,
I think that validates
Deion. Then it validates Deion.
I totally agree. So,
yeah,
but we don't know. There's a couple teams. There's teams that you think are going to be pretty good. You think there's teams that can be pretty good. You have a big group of I have no fucking clue. And then you have a couple teams that you're like, they might be okay, but probably going to struggle a little bit this year. Like I'd put probably Utah and not Utah, but Houston.
Houston should be better.
Houston should be a little better. Houston won't be a doormat.
No,
Cincinnati won't be a doormat.
Houston wasn't really a doormat last year. They had
they weren't.
They were very competitive.
They weren't like they were last year. So like Houston, Cincinnati will probably be your bottom 2, I would think.
But I don't like. I don't have high expectations for Cincinnati. I don't know what to expect for UCF.
West Virginia UCF is an I have no idea. I'm guessing UCF is an I have no idea minus team. Like they could like surprise and have something come out of nowhere and be really good, or at least decent anyways. But I don't think their ceiling is like 10 wins. I mean, they're probably like, if a lot of things go right, UCF's like a 7-win team.
Okay, Houston should be better. We're having conversations. We'll get back to the schedule in a second. Let me ask you this.
It's all irrelevant though, because so Houston's gonna be better. Like they can be pushing for a bowl game this year.
Okay, so here's the question then: who's the worst team in the Big 12 this year?
The worst team.
Who finishes last this year? It may not be as bad as OSU, where you
Let me look at Cincinnati's schedule, because that would probably that's the first team that kind of comes to my head.
Cincinnati is
Nebraska's
Nebraska
probably
in
a
a
loss.
neutral site.
Gonna be a
Arrowhead over the
loss.
season.
They'll beat Bowling Green and Northwestern State. At Kansas is tough. Then they got us at home.
At Kansas, Iowa State, UCF, at OSU,
They
Baylor,
can beat
at
UCF.
Utah.
They can beat. I mean, maybe Oklahoma State. I don't know.
That's homecoming, by the way.
For Oklahoma State, it is.
That is Oklahoma State's homecoming.
Okay. If I was Iowa State, then I'd take Cincinnati, because Iowa State is fucking horrible at homecoming. Then you've got Baylor's good. Utah, Utah might be good.
On the road, though, so who knows?
At Utah, Arizona, that's a tough finish to the season there. I'm gonna probably say Cincinnati, but they're still. If you say they beat Bowling Green, Northwestern State,
FCS State. So.
Yeah, so you got 1, 2. Let's say they beat one of UCF, Oklahoma State, and Utah. So they got 2 there. Yeah, they got 3 wins there. Maybe they beat Arizona for 4. The rest of those don't look great to me. It's probably Cincinnati. West Virginia, I'm not super high on. I'm not a believer that Rich Rod is going to have the magic this time around that he did last time, because they've got. I don't know how good Ohio is, but I can tell you from experience that playing at Ohio is not a fun time. But let's say they take care of business there. They got Robert Morris, Ohio. Granted, at Ohio is a much shorter trip for West Virginia than Iowa State. Pitt, is Pitt going to be good? I have no idea. Kansas, Utah, BYU, UCF, TCU, Houston. Yeah, that's kind of that's a tough schedule. West Virginia really doesn't have any. West Virginia doesn't really play anybody that you're going to look at as being like, oh, this team's going to suck. Like their easiest game I see on the schedule is either home versus TCU or at Houston, as far as conference play goes. Woof. If your easiest game is at Houston, I don't love that.
I mean, at Houston or at UCF, because we just don't know what UCF's going to be.
Yeah, that's true. You don't have any idea what UCF's going to be. Maybe it's at UCF or at Houston, but other than that, even if you say they win both of those, the rest of that schedule's really kind of gnarly.
I'm going to throw out.
I think at Kansas, at BYU, at Arizona State, you can chuck them up as L's right now.
I'm going to throw out the potential that Arizona is the worst team in the Big 12 this season.
I listen, that was the other team that came to my mind, was either Cincinnati or Arizona. I'm not Arizona. I wasn't a believer in Arizona last year, and I'm not this year.
I'm not a Brent. I was told to believe in Brent Brennan because San Jose State's a very difficult job to win at.
Right.
And he won some games there, but then Niumatalolo shows up and is immediately good. And so if I'm setting the bar at Ken Niumatalolo shows up, and
if you look at the players that San Jose State had last year, most people don't realize that San Jose State had the most productive receiver in college football last year, in Nick Nash. And so was he winning because he just had a couple really, really good players and was playing at a level where that kind of player can win you games by himself?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I think Arizona could be the worst team in the Big 12 next year.
I think so. You lose Ted McMillan and you replace him with somebody that nobody knows. That doesn't mean they can't be good, but I don't know. Noah Fafita's a good quarterback, or he can be a good quarterback.
He is, but if he doesn't have anything to work with, and then the schedule, you break down of.
You look at Hawaii, Weber State, K-State. K-State
back to back Wildcats versus Wildcats on Wildcats, because Weber State and Kansas State are both the Wildcats, and Arizona's the Wildcats.
Well, Weber State's the fighting Damian Lillards. And then we've got K-State at Iowa State, Oklahoma State,
at Iowa State, OSU. Yeah,
they might. Because they can win the first 2, and then they may lose 6, 7, 8, 9. They may lose. They may go 2 and 10.
Theory, depending upon what OSU looks like this year, their easiest road game
is at Houston.
Could be at Cincinnati.
At Cincinnati, yeah.
Let's put it this way. Depending on what Oklahoma State looks like, their easiest games in Big 12 play are on the road, based off our preseason expectations.
Houston, Cincinnati, yeah.
Houston and Cincinnati.
Gosh, that's
That is
horrible. That's
that
a
is
terrible schedule.
not a favorable
Oh my
schedule for
god.
Arizona
I
if
mean,
they're
the
bad. And
floor is
this is
the
built
floor is
entirely.
legitimately 2-10.
This is entirely built on our expectations of like, well, I don't know what Colorado's going to look like because they got a lot to bring back. We don't know how
Right.
Oklahoma State bounces back, but like Kansas is still going to have Jalen Daniels. Baylor should be good. BYU brings a bunch back. Kansas State's still Kansas State, and that's a non-conference game. That doesn't even count. So take even that. It's a 5 road games conference schedule, and your easiest opponents are on the road.
The floor is
tough.
2-10. I mean, they can win Hawaii and Weber State, and then everything else beyond that is a coin flip or worse.
I think I'm picking Arizona to be the worst team in the Big 12 this year.
I think I'm gonna jump on that train with you because I can see more. Like I can look at Cincinnati's schedule and find more wins like right away, versus like Arizona. I'm seeing 2 that I've like, okay, you can beat Hawaii and Weber State, and I don't know if Hawaii's. I think Hawaii was like okay last year, weren't they?
Yeah, they're all right.
Yeah, it's home though. You don't have to go to Hawaii. You don't have to go to Hawaii.
Right.
So you got those 2. Beyond that, there's not a game you're looking at and you're like, oh yeah, they got a great shot in that.
Arizona's going to have to be improved over last year, and I have a hard time seeing that.
Ceiling. Let's say Oklahoma State's not any good. You beat Oklahoma State at home. Maybe you win at Cincinnati and at Houston. Like is the ceiling 5 or is the ceiling 5 wins? Maybe Colorado's bad. I don't know. You have to rely on Oklahoma State, Colorado, Cincinnati, and Houston all being worse than we thought.
Or you just pull off
or you get some crazy luck or something.
Which you like, let's say, okay, they move Baylor to a Thursday night, and so you pull off I look at the schedule and go, I don't know that Arizona is going to be better this year than they were last year. And I don't see it.
I don't see the path. I don't see the path to a bowl game. I don't see the path beyond 4 wins.
So I'll say it now. When I fill out the preseason predictions, I'm putting Arizona at 16.
I think so too. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to overall. We won't go too much longer. My boss just walked by and was like, gave me a really weird look, but got used to me doing this stuff. We're going to do my notes. No true rivalry week in the Big 12. Of course, we only have 4 protected rivalries in the conference anyway, but there's no, even if you take the rivalry games like Holy War and the Revivalry, I'm not calling it the Blueberry Bunny Bowl, whatever.
Which one's that?
Baylor TCU are on the same week, but Sunflower Showdown's a week later from that, Duel in the Deserts at the end of the season. Like the 4 protected rivalries are all spread out. There's no Kansas State, Iowa State this year. So there's no, it's Farmageddon. Sorry. I keep forgetting because it's in week 0 and it's throwing me off completely. And it's in.
No, next year is when
that's right. But it's all the way in.
The football gods decided that we just hated college football.
It's all the way in week 0. So it's not at the same time. If I put like Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, right? Because I view that as something of a rivalry game. It's not the same. It's the same week as the Sunflower Showdown. So like we get a couple of doubles. There's no rivalry week in the Big 12 anymore. They have basically said.
Was there ever?
I mean, you used to get a lot more at the end of the season, like everybody else did. You used to have a few more, but I mean, at this point, there's no, to me, set. This is the weekend we're going to put matchups that make a lot of sense.
I think the Big 12 should put a rivalry week like the first week of October.
No, you put it on SoCon Saturday. You put it the weekend that the SEC basically takes off.
Play all their dog shit
in early November. Like that is the weekend you pick and say, okay, we're going to lean into this week and go all in on rivalry games that people are going to care about. We're going to put the Holy War here. We're going to put Sunflower Showdown or Farmageddon. I don't care, whichever one. We're going to put Arizona State. We're going to put OSU. Like they're going to, even the non-protected ones, and people are like, no, these are UCF Houston. Speaking of UCF Houston, we have to have this conversation. Bless you, UCF, because if Big 12 fans should be aware now, UCF has their space game. They are undefeated since they started the space game in football. The average margin of victory for UCF is like 20-something points. And they put the base game on the Houston game this year. And I
hope Houston
cannot wait.
Uniforms too.
It's, oh my gosh. So it's on November 8th. Nothing would be better than Houston showing up in their own space uniforms, taking this abuse space game.
I mean,
don't tell me this isn't a rivalry.
With the actual Houston Rockets, get the Houston Rockets to make them a space uniform.
Don't tell me it's not a rivalry, because as soon as I brought this stuff up, I've had nothing in our Twitter mentions except for them argue. Houston and UCF fans retweeting, quote tweeting, commenting, replying at each other about space. And then to get the Arizona fans who like to chime in, and somebody came in with Purdue and somebody came in with Cincinnati because of Neil Armstrong. And I was just like, first of all, every time there's a debate about who owns space in college football, it's the greatest thing in the absolute world. But it is Houston and UCF playing the space game. Houston, you're about to learn a space game. It just is. It is. Arizona fans last year were like, that's not gonna and then UCF blasted them because it's what they do. They blasted Oklahoma State 2 years ago. They blast everybody.
So
but did they put it for Houston game?
I respect the space game. Like, I respect the space game aura, but I do think the bounce house is maybe the single most overrated home atmosphere in college football. But
that's fine. That's fine. But the space game is a real thing.
Space game is good. Space game is good.
It's a real thing. No one plays more than 7 games in a row, which I think is a good, solid thing. I do think that is solid. Colorado does it weeks 1 through 7. Houston's week 5 through 11. TCU week 3 through 9. OSU 4 through 10, and Texas Tech 6 through 12. Nobody else I thought had a 7-game stretch. Oklahoma State's closed the schedule, is at Tech, at Kansas, week off. Kansas State at UCF, Iowa State. That is a based off expectations. Tech, Kansas, Kansas State, UCF, and Iowa State to close out the season. That's a tough run. Even you're like, well, they get to go to UCF. Well, yeah, but that's like in the middle of that run. That's a tough draw. West Virginia does not have back-to-back home games at all this season.
Ouch.
Not
they do.
at all. It is. It's home road. It's home road, home road, home road, road home, road home, road home. Then they have back-to-back road, but there's a week off in the middle. That is rough. TCU's only back-to-back home games are in the non-conference in weeks 3 and 4 against Abilene Christian and SMU. They don't have back-to-back Big 12 games. For the first time since 1955, there is no butt bowl. We've been robbed of the butt bowl, and this is unacceptable. It's butt. It's absolute butt. As I noted earlier, Arizona will play the Wildcats in back-to-back weeks and the Cougars in back-to-back weeks when they play BYU and Houston in back-to-back weeks, because why not? Arizona should play all the cats, every cat. We need a cat trophy, and whoever wins the most games of the cat-based mascots gets the cat trophy. Just like Arizona, UCF, Houston, and Cincinnati should all have a space race trophy.
A little piece of yarn on the end of a little tiny fishing pole. Yeah.
No, it just needs to be like cat ears, like little emo girl cat ears.
I think the Big 12, you know what the Big 12 should do? The best marketing thing the Big 12 could ever do is to introduce more trophy games.
Yes. Multi-team trophy games.
Yes.
Multi-team trophy games.
Maybe.
No, because Cincinnati, Arizona, UCF, and Houston all argue about who gets to be the space.
The problem with multi-team trophies, like the Commander-in-Chief trophy, the Commander-in-Chief trophy is cool because it's 3 service academies.
And they all play together.
But the problem with that, you know what? The cool part of winning trophy games is at the end of the game when one team goes across the football field to the other team's sideline and steals the fucking trophy off the other team's sideline. That is the cool part about rivalry games. When you see, like when Iowa and Iowa State play, and Iowa State goes to Kinnick and goes back and runs across the Kinnick sideline and goes and steals the Cyhawk trophy to bring it back to their side. That is the cool part of rivalry about like trophy games, is seeing them walk around with the trophy on the field. If you have a multi-team trophy game, you can't do that because you don't know who won the trophy until the end of the season. So all you ever see is like the school posted that they put it in their trophy case. Great.
Okay.
Let's have trophies on the field.
Houston UCF is, of course, the space trophy. It's got to be a rocket ship.
So Arizona State needs one. I'm just going for the top.
But that's a real one. That's a real. Do
they have a trophy though?
The Duel in the Desert? I think so. Let's go see what the Duel in the Desert trophy is.
Like, that's what's called Duel in the Desert.
Yeah, it's the Territorial Cup Series or Duel in the Desert. Rival has many nicknames, including the Battle of Arizona and the Cactus War. The Cactus War to me should be between Arizona and Texas.
There is a trophy, it looks like.
I believe so. I'm trying to find it.
Yeah, it is. There is one per Wikipedia. Okay, so Arizona has one. That's good. I think Arizona. I don't know if Arizona really has any other ones, and I'm like, oh, they need one.
No, they need a big old tumbleweed. No, Arizona Texas Tech needs a giant tumbleweed.
Arizona Texas.
It's all West Texas.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm in there. So Baylor needs one TCU, I don't care. Pick one.
They have
Whatever.
one.
Do they?
The
Okay.
revolver. And they also have
needs one. Butler needs one, and it needs to be funny.
Oh, it
like
does. Baylor and Iowa State, we made the tent trophy. So the tent trophy exists.
See, so Baylor and Iowa State's a funny one because you have that one funny that one funny moment, but also like dating back to the Matt Rule days, Iowa State, like the team, the coaching staff hates Baylor's guts.
Yes.
Now the problem is that Dave Aranda is the coach, and Dave Aranda is an inherently likable person.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought you were disagreeing. I feel like Dave Aranda is a pretty nice guy.
Love Dave Aranda.
So Dave Aranda is not nearly as hateable. Like Baylor is not nearly as hateable now as they were when Matt Rule was there. But when Matt Rule was there, Iowa State hated their fucking guts. So BYU, I mean, they've got the Holy War. Does Holy War actually have a trophy? I know it's the Holy War, but does that actually have a trophy? If it doesn't, it needs a trophy. And then I think BYU and Houston needs a Cougar Bowl trophy. UCF, I think UCF Houston needs a space game trophy. It needs to be an astronaut. What it needs to be is it needs to be one of the Moon Man awards from like the 2004 MTV like VMA awards. That's what they need, but it needs to be like an old one from like that like Simple Plan one a long time ago. Let's see, Cincinnati. Does Cincinnati have a rivalry that matters?
Their rivalry is with West Virginia, but West Virginia disagrees with them that it's a rivalry game.
Okay, so Cincinnati's on hold. Colorado kind of also on hold, but you could make an argue that Iowa State and Colorado because of the tornado game. Maybe Houston's got UCF and probably do they have another one? I think it's just Houston UCF. I think that's the space game. The fact that Farmageddon does not yet have a trophy is a travesty akin to anything you can think of. It's horrible. It should have a trophy. We're going to put that on the shoulders of a certain athletic director. And then Iowa State and Oklahoma State all should have a trophy game.
I'm trying to show.
Iowa State Oklahoma State is the best football matchup that this conference has had for the last decade.
Yes.
Not even close. And it's a shame that they didn't play last year, even if Oklahoma State wasn't very good. Kansas gets Kansas State. Maybe say Kansas gets Kansas and Colorado. You could maybe make a justification there. Kansas State gets Iowa State and Kansas. Oklahoma State gets Texas Tech and Iowa State.
Yeah.
TCU gets Baylor and SMU. They get the frying pan. Texas Tech gets Baylor and Oklahoma State. Utah gets BYU. I don't know. Maybe there's a Colorado series to be had there. West Virginia gets Cincinnati. And unfortunately, not Iowa State. So you miss out on the official Riot Bowl. But you could, I don't know. They're kind of just out in the middle of nowhere is the problem.
Man, this is not letting me upload things I want to upload.
The problem is there's at minimum one trophy game. Most of them will have two legit trophy games that you could play. Put trophy games in the conference. Do what the Big Ten is. Make every goddamn matchup you can think of have a damn trophy game. Every single one.
I really want to.
Also, time for Missouri to stop being cowards and give us the telephone trophy.
I make dumb trophies all the year. We're up on this. I always like to point out that we have the Rich Rod Trophy for when West Virginia and Arizona play. We need to have it back again. It is literally a pinata in the shape of Rich Rod's head, and the winner gets to bash it open. Though West Virginia fans may not want to now that he's back as their head coach, but I don't care. It's still funny to me. Obviously, we've done the Tubber Bowl, which is Cincinnati and Texas Tech.
The Tubber Bowl. Then he called the trophy Tupperware. Yeah.
Well, it's literally just a football with his giant ears and hair on top of it. Let's see. There's the UCF trophy, which is literally UCF's logo, but with the C replaced with the Cincinnati logo, which is for those two teams. What else? We've done a Texas. I've done a bunch of weird.
Like we're trying too hard.
And then, of course, if you're going to do Iowa State, Texas Tech, or no, Iowa State needs one with somebody out in the desert. So we can have the battle of the corn tortilla versus the flour tortilla. I can make up.
I thought of one. I'll tell you it off the air though.
Okay. Okay, that feels like a good spot. All right, thank you to everybody who has tuned in. This has been the most useless review of the Big 12 schedule possible. I think the only thing that really takeaway that we can come up with is that A, Utah's going to Wyoming, so they're going to lose that game, and B, Arizona will finish as the worst team in the Big 12 conference. Never schedule road games at Wyoming, people. Why on earth would you do that? Have we learned nothing here? Have we learned nothing?
Rules. I love this schedule. It's fantastic.
I can't wait. Levi, as always, it's a pleasure. I know you're going to let everybody know where you're going to be talking about the Iowa State schedule specifically. I know you got something coming up.
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously, everybody here knows me from Wide Right Night Lite, but I also recently, as of December, Tuesday nights, I do a live stream on the Voice of College Football Network, Mark Rogers' Voice of College Football Network, every Tuesday at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time. It's kind of a Q&A type thing, like, today I'll be going over the schedule and doing something kind of similar to this. But I'll be digging more into Iowa State, obviously. And but we do this every week. During the off season, I'm going to do more. So we'll talk about some recruiting, but I'm also going to do some recaps of old seasons. Maybe like we'll spend an episode going through Seneca Wallace's career. Stuff like we'll go through his best plays and stuff like that. So it'll be fun through the off season. But every week, 7 p.m. Central on Tuesdays, we're live on YouTube and on the Voice of College Football Network Twitter.
I'll finish on this note. Go look at Arizona's video for their schedule release. It's content gold. It's content gold. Absolute gold. So we're up on that. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back on Thursday with the next episode of the 1012 podcast. Of course, it's on Thursdays we talk softball. So we'll talk to you then. We're going to send the primary campaign.